Hey guys, welcome. No studio backdrop this time. I'm in the south of France. That's the famous Mont Ventoux up there. But that's not really what this video is about. I'm here to talk about two Zenbivy sleep systems that I've been testing, the Light Bed and the Muscovy Ultralight Bed, both rated at -4 degrees Celsius, that is 25 Fahrenheit. And the reason that I picked these is that is exactly the temperature rating that's most popular among thru-hikers. Warm enough to keep you safe during unexpected cold nights, light enough not to slow you down, and versatile enough to use from spring through fall. And I think that is probably the best setup for most people in moderate climates, a sleep system that works for 90% of trips for simplicity's sake, for the animal's sake if you're buying down, and also for your bank accounts. Because I'll give you a couple of tips in this video to save some money, but these aren't exactly cheap, so it's great that you only need the one. Now, there's quite a few quilts that fit that bill temperature-wise. Popular models from brands like Enlightened Equipment, Catabatic, and so on. Why then should you check out Zenbivy, apart perhaps from the fact that they're a bit easier to buy here in Europe? Well, I don't want to go over the whole system again in detail because I've talked about it in previous videos. But essentially what this is the head end of a sleeping bag with a couple of comfort upgrades, with the bottom end of a quilt giving you the advantages of each. So on the head end, warm, no drafts, no wandering pillows, no getting everything bunched up because you toss and turn too much. And on the bottom end, maximum versatility, whatever the weather. That would be my sales pitch for Zenbivy. Though they should probably be calling it Frankenbed, if only because it is decidedly not a bed. So we have two sleep systems here, light and ultralight. What are the key differences? Number one is obviously fill and weight. If they were the same color, you would probably have to know where to look to tell them apart, but actually both the shell and the fill are different. The Light Bed uses 800 fill down, the Ultralight one has 900 fill down for Muscovy ducks, and those produce a higher grade type of down with more loft and better compressibility. So it's more expensive, but still cheaper than the goose down that Zenbivy traditionally uses. So the Muscovy is their budget premium offering, if that makes sense. The shell is also different, with the Ultralight Bed using a super thin 10 denier Perdex Quantum, and the Light Bed using a combination really of fabrics with a comfy 25D pongee fabric for everything that touches your skin, and a very thin 15D nylon for everything else. And I think this is actually a nice touch, a nice change from the typical ultralight slick fabrics that are not very nice to sweat into. Worst case, they can feel like you're sleeping in a packet of crisps, and they're also not very bed-like, so it's just one more hurdle for your brain to take to get to sleep. I think fabric feel is perhaps an underrated topic in hiking. But of course, the scales do not lie. The ultralight version is indeed considerably lighter at 693 grams, with the Light Bed coming in at 1,071 grams. And I'm sure someone will say in the comments, well, actually, neither of those is ultralight. The goalposts keep moving. There's always something lighter. But I'm pretty confident that Zenbivy's Ultralight Bed is lighter than 80% of backpacking sleep systems out there, while including a hood and an integrated pad attachment. So that is good enough for me. Is it worth the extra money over the Light Bed though? That is an interesting question, because functionally, I kind of like the Light Bed a bit better. I already mentioned the fabric feel, but there's also the foot box. The ultralight version comes with what Zenbivy calls a fast foot box, which is kind of funny because it highlights the fact that their convertible foot box is a bit complicated, which also makes it fairly slow, with clips and cinch cords and buttons, all of which I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to be able to locate in the middle of the night. but I do like myself a convertible foot box because I do most of my hiking in summer, and I'm guessing most of you do, and having an actual blanket without that clump at the bottom is just nicer, except in very specific situations. So, which one should you choose? If you're not super into gram counting, you want to save some money, and you appreciate a softer, cozy feel, I think the Light Bed is a great choice, especially if, like me, you do a bit of, I don't know, bike packing or car camping or whatever activity where weight is less of an issue. This may not get top marks in a year spreadsheet, but it certainly feels good inside a tent. If you're set on going ultralight and you can spare the money, the Muscovy Ultralight Bed is also a good choice. It's never going to be the lightest sleep system since it needs a hood and a pad attachment to work its magic. But given that form factor, it provides maximum packability and loft. In terms of fill, it's pretty close to other options on the market that have the same temp rating, but I think the fact that your head is protected from the cold and that you don't get those drafts around your neck is a very nice bonus if you've ever found yourself going back and forth between quilts and mummy bags because neither was quite right. This is definitely worth trying out. A couple of other small things that you should know before we move on to money and saving money. These beds work best with large sleeping pads. Smaller pads do fit, but it's not as snug and it takes more fiddling to set up. I'd say a pad with at least 60 centimeters, 25 inches of width will give you the best experience. And most pads will align with the valve cutout on the Zenbivy sheet, which is a small but welcome detail. Duck down has a bit of a reputation for smells, especially when it's wet and especially when it's not washed or treated correctly in the factory, but I had none of those issues here, and that is not something that should be taken for granted because I have a duck down ice flame quilt, and it took over a year to get that faint smell out of that one. I must say that other than the smell, that is actually quite a good quilt. I wouldn't choose it over the Zenbivy, but if budget is tight, definitely not a bad place to start looking. I'll link the exact version below. And to finish off this quick fire round, Zenbivy weirdly does not include compression caps. That is a €25, $19 option. I think that's the first time I've seen that with a premium sleep system. Feels a bit stingy. So, onto the money. I do like Zenbivy stuff, that's no secret. I think they represent a real comfort upgrade, but pricing is not what you'd call beginner friendly. So a couple of thoughts on value. First one's easy. If you want ultralight, go for the Muscovy version. If you're really into ultralight, you could argue that the upgrade from a light bed to an ultralight bed, euros per grams saved is pretty straightforward. I can't say the same thing for the upgrade from the upgrade from duck down to goose down. I think it's fairly steep and that most people can find better and cheaper weight savings elsewhere. Now, if you've decided that you want to try these out, but they're just too expensive, it's important to know that when it comes to the added value of a Zenbivy bed compared to a regular quilt, it is the sheet and the hood part that are doing the heavy lifting. So if you already own a good quilt and you're not afraid of sewing needles, you can just buy a Zenbivy sheet of your choice and sew some loops into the quilt. It probably won't be a 100% fit, but with some tweaking, it's possible to get pretty close. And third, Zenbivy is not exactly known for deep discounts, but using the link and the code underneath this video will take some of the sting off those prices and also buys me a coffee, which is always appreciated. Bottom line, two great, very comfortable 3-season systems, one for gram counters, one for people who value versatility and cozy fabrics. If you have questions or you want to share your Zenbivy experience, drop them below. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, and I will see you in the next one.